Hello and welcome to another edition of Lab Matters, a webcast from Kaspersky Lab. My guest today came all the way from Brazil, Mr. Fabio Assolini, who is a malware analyst with a global research and analysis team in Brazil. And Fabio, welcome to the webcast. I want to start by asking you about newer advancements in malware development in Brazil. Brazil has kind of been a hub for a lot of malicious activity, a lot of banker Trojans and stuff has come out of that region. Have you seen any sort of new developments happening there that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we see last month some new techniques, new advanced techniques used by Brazilian bad guys to create new kinds of Brazilian bankers, Brazilian Trojan bankers. I want to talk especially about a rootkit banker produced especially for system Windows 64 bits. Brazilian bankers were the first in the world to create a rootkit banker developed especially
for 64-bit Windows.
Yes, to infect Windows 64 bits. It was created in Brazil and disseminated in Brazil.
How widespread is it?
It was, Kaspersky was the first security company in Brazil to detect this kind of threat and block this kind of threat. And it was in Brazil, the distribution of this kind of threat was big.
Pretty widespread.
Yeah.
Banker Trojans on the whole, the banker issue is kind of, it's not necessarily unique to Brazil, but it's the biggest thing that happens in Brazil. Talk a little bit about some of the things you've seen around banker Trojans, specifically as it relates to Brazil, and any sort of new developments that have happened around banker Trojans in your region.
Brazilian bad guys use all kinds of malicious techniques to infect and to steal money. So they use attacks, man the browser, man the middle, malicious proxies, and all kinds of
social engineering. Some of the same things we see in the US, right?
They are the king in social engineering attacks.
Right.
The number of attacks are increasing a lot in Brazil, and not only focused only on Brazilian people, but now they are directing their attacks against banks in Europe.
Really? So Brazilian bad guys using same techniques, same banker Trojan techniques and attacks, attacking consumers and users in parts of Europe.
Yeah.
Is it Portuguese language or Spanish and Portuguese?
Yeah, the attacks are now focused on Spain and Portugal.
Spain and Portugal. How easy is that to do in terms of getting money transferred back and distributed between regions? Is that, I mean, how can you explain to me how they were able to launch an attack in Portugal from Brazil?
They have an easy situation because the idiom, the language. So Portugal talks Portuguese,
right.
And Spain are very similar to Portuguese.
Right.
So initially they are focusing their attacks on this way because the language is so similar, and they are using money mules to transfer the money.
So it's the same kind of money mules that we see with Eastern Europeans attacking users in the US. It's the same attack techniques they're using.
Exactly.
Are you seeing a lot of an increase in attacks on social networks? Is Facebook, Twitter, and those social networks popular in Brazil? And what types of attacks are you seeing on those networks?
Social networks are quite popular in Brazil, especially Orkut.
Orkut. So Orkut is still the main one?
Yeah, it's still the #1 in Brazil. But now we are watching an interesting situation where people are migrating to Facebook. Yeah, and we already saw some months ago some worms made by Brazilian bad guys to infect people in Facebook, but targeting Brazilian
users only.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see that. What about Twitter?
Yeah, we have a big presence of Brazilians in Twitter, but Orkut, it's still #1.
Right. In Brazil, do you have a very popular smartphone culture where a lot of people use smartphones? And are you seeing any sort of attacks on mobile devices facing Brazilian users?
Not yet. Not yet.
So mobile is still very new and emerging there.
Exactly.
What would you say is the #1 issue facing Brazilian business users as they think about security on their network? What is the biggest nightmare for an IT administrator in Brazil?
I'm quite sure Trojan bankers.
So banker Trojans again.
Yeah, last year in 2010, Brazilian bad guys created 36% of all Trojan bankers circulating in the world. 36%.
So a third of all Trojan bankers came out of Brazil. And targeting business users as well? Or,
business and home users.
Business and home users. Do you have an issue in Brazil where it's a struggle and a problem to get end users to patch their systems, whether it's the Windows platform, whether it's Adobe Flash, PDF? How does that affect the malware ecosystem in Brazil?
Yeah, this is an interesting situation. We have a lot, especially home users, not installing patches on the system. So, for example, we have a lot of drive-by download attacks, exploiting especially Java.
Right, so a lot of stuff happening on the web.
Yes.
All right, Fabio, thank you very much. Appreciate the appearance on the webcast.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching another edition of Lab Matters, a webcast from Kaspersky Lab. You can check some of our other webcasts at youtube.com/Kaspersky.